Missouri Governor Mike Parson on the phone with us. Governor, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine, sir. Great to have you on here. I saw where you were making some comments the other day, obviously, about the COVID situation in the state of Missouri, the use of masks. Liberal politicians here in St. Louis have found a new reason to like the police. They want them to be the mask police these days.
Yeah, this just creates more problems. Look, people in this state is why I haven't mandated masks in the state. Look, people can do that. You can wear a mask. You don't need government telling you to do that. And I highly recommend it. I don't want anybody to think I'm anti-mask because that's not the case. But what I am is I just don't think it's government's place to be telling everybody where to do that. And I think even in some portions of the states, we got a report yesterday. We're checking it out now. Even making it where you have to wear one inside your house, or if friends come over, you got to wear your house. And that's not a good road to go down for any of us.
No, it isn't. You could also, I guess, pass some sort of executive order telling people to come in out of the rain. Some of it's just common sense, right?
Yeah, you got to be able to do that. Look, the vast majority of the people in the state are smart enough to figure this out. We're not helpless against the COVID-19 anymore. We know how there's defensive things we can do, and we need to utilize that. We know the risk. We know who the people are at the high risk. We just got to take care of each other. And I just heard in the opening of your show they're getting people back to school. I mean, we got to move on. We can't just let this thing stop us in our tracks. And we can't move forward with the economy, with our lives. I mean, it's a virus, but we can handle this thing.
Governor Mike Parson, my guest. I know, Governor, you've probably heard of the Powerplex here in St. Louis County up at the former Mills Mall, where they've designed it as a youth sports complex. And this week, our county executive has announced that youth sports are part of the problem and that he's going to start shutting it down effective next week. And I'm going to have Dan Buck on here shortly, who runs the Powerplex. He told me that out of 12,000 local athletes, there have been 2 reported cases of COVID. The facts don't back up action like this. What do you do when you see local politicians overreacting to this situation?
Yeah, you got to stop. Again, there's data out there. There's scientific evidence now of who this affects and who it doesn't. And kids are the least likely to have a problem with this. And the complex you're talking about, I actually toured that, and what a fantastic opportunity to have for youth. But look, you can't just – these kids have got to get back to school. They're at the lowest risk possible. And if they do get COVID-19, which they will, and they will when they go to school, they're not going to the hospitals. They're not going to have to sit in doctor's office for days. They're going to go home, and they're going to get over it. And most of it all proves out to be that way, that if you look at the science of it. And we got to get real with that and realize that, we got to move forward. The risk of not getting youth involved in activities, the risk of not putting them back in school, I guarantee you will create more problems than the virus will ever think about creating long-term for our state. So we got to figure this out, and we got to get it balanced, but we got to get life back to normal as we can get it there.
Well, Governor, is that a conversation you're willing to have with Sam Page, because he's going to shut down youth sports in St. Louis County?
Yeah, this thing is, at some point, you said a while ago, there's got to be a balancing act to this. Everybody, there are certain things I can do as governor, certain things I can't. But look, people's going to have to start holding people accountable, and elected officials. Elections matter, and we're seeing a perfect example of, as we go through this process, of who's overreacting, who's using scientific data to make decisions. And the other thing of it is, people probably need to be making a decision for themselves instead of just me or Sam Page or whoever it might be. All of a sudden it thinks, okay, I'm going to take over and make all the rules for everybody. That's not good policy.
I couldn't agree more with that. Governor Parson, you've made some comments this week about the McCloskeys here in St. Louis who tried to defend their property, the fact that Kim Gardner, the circuit attorney, is considering charges against them. You even suggested the president is paying attention to this case. What are your comments on this today as we still wait for whatever charges may be coming down the pike?
Yeah, but let me just be clear on this. Regardless what the people's last name are, you're talking about the opportunity of the law to stand your ground is what you're talking about. And the Castle Doctrine, which I helped write in the state of Missouri, they did what they legally should do. A mob does not have the right to charge your property or to come on your property not knowing what the intent is. They had every right to protect themselves, And what Kim Gardner's doing is just making the situation by far worse, making it more political by even attempting to file charges against them. That thing's just out of control up there, and somehow it's got to be reeled in. But again, I'll say it and say it again: elections matter, and I wish sometimes I could just walk in there and do things the way I want them to do. But someday some other governor will be sitting in the seat, and I wouldn't want them to have the powers to do that either.
Right. So here's a question a listener posed to me the other day. Just hypothetically, if Kim Gardner is to try to prosecute one of these two people and somehow takes them into a jury trial in the city and gets them convicted, do you as governor have the power to pardon or commute something like that?
Oh, by all means, I would, and I think that's exactly what would happen. I don't. Right now that's what I feel. You don't know till you hear all the facts and all that. But right now, if this is all about going after them because they did a lawful act, then yeah, if that scenario ever happened, I don't think they're going to spend any time in jail.
And Governor, I've heard you comment about Kim Gardner specifically before. This has got to be frustrating. It's frustrating to the people that live in this region that the crime numbers are going up. There have been 130 murders as of yesterday in the city of St. Louis, maybe more than that overnight. What's the answer to that? You're calling a special session. What can you do about that?
Well, Mark, by calling a special session, I'm just trying to help the law enforcement guys to give them more tools to be able to fight this crime and to get bad people off the street. But look, if the prosecutor, if the judges, or law enforcement, if they have three branches that fail, the whole system falls. And that's why that's running rapid up there, is because they're not doing a good job before they ever get to a homicide level. You got violent crime going on, and it's just escalating to a whole different level. And it's got to stop. I mean, people, when you start talking about the police and reform and all that, I get all that. There's a discussion for that. But right now you have hundreds of people in St. Louis, Kansas City that are dying, 230, 240 right now for St. Louis and Kansas City. And if you compare that to COVID-19 deaths, which I don't want to make light of that either, but there's been about 180 in both of those areas since this started. So that's kind of the comparison we're dealing with. And the thing that when Gardner talks about she doesn't trust the police or she's not going to file because of police officers, the one thing she's missing the whole point of her oath, it's about the victims. It's not about the police officers. It's about you've actually got a victim out there. You got a family out there that justice needs to be served, and she needs to do her job when it comes to situations like that.
Governor, I had one final question here before we run out of time. I know the Missouri Scout, I read this publication, is not always complimentary of you or of any politician for that matter, but they're putting out stories that even your fellow Republicans are unhappy with this special session that you've called for the purpose of it and what can actually get accomplished. What's your reaction to that?
Well, look, everybody needs to step up here. I don't know. I haven't read any of that, but here's what I'd say. I realize there's election coming up. Politics are involved. I realize everybody's out on summer right now. But you got people dying every day in this state. If we can't take the time to come in and help law enforcement and try to help the people across the state, when we can do a lot of other things during the process, we got to step up. They need to come in here. They need to do their job. They need to help these law enforcement officers in these cities, and then we need to get out of Jeff City and go home and get ready for session.
And you're going to hoping they're going to take another run at the residency rule in the city?
I do. Look. The bottom line, there are 150 officers down in St. Louis. That if you could find them in St. Louis City, I get it. But the reality of it is, you're not. So you've got to expand that. When I was sheriff back home, I tried to hire everybody in the county because I thought it was important that they live in the county. But there was a point after about 9 or 10 years in, the pool of officers just wasn't there. So I had to expand that and go to other counties and hire people. And I think St. Louis is in the same position, to do that. So look, you're 150 officers short. Homicide rates are going up. Violent crime's going up. You got to get boots on the ground, and the sooner the better.
Governor Mike Parson, appreciate your time this morning, sir. Thank you.